All right, so we're welcome again to Aflame and Whole, and we're going on with our series on biblical stewardship. This will be our third session, and looking at how to understand what the Bible says about money and wealth. If you had missed our earlier episodes, we're 3 down the line now. Kindly see the others in our YouTube page. The objective for today and this session generally will be to enable participants apply fundraising principles in their ministry. Our discussant today, as usual, we have Pastor Joel Rumamnura. He coordinates the youth ministry, Remam Global Ministry, based in Makurdi, Benue State, and is married with 3 children. I also know that they often engage in reaching out to the internally displaced persons in the north. We also have Prof. Victor Okpara here, the Kingdom Advocate committed to helping humanity come into the fullness of purpose. He's also involved in the Destiny Army, an indigenous organization whose focus is reaching out to the unreached with the gospel within and around Ogun State, Nigeria. All right, so to continue our discussion, we started the topic biblical stewardship by stating that every nation has resources and all resources were given to us by God. In fact, in Psalm 24 verse 1, which was one of our anchor verses, it says the earth is the Lord and everything in it, the world and all who live in it, right? I love the way King James Version, put that last one, all who dwell in it, right? The earth is the Lord. Everything we have belongs to us. Now, it doesn't matter how proud we like to feel. Sometimes you need to just sit down and think about life. You would understand that everything actually belongs to God, right? Sometimes I go to some cities in Nigeria and I see certain streets, named after our previous leaders. And I ask myself, these leaders who are dead and gone, naming streets after them, does it really do anything to them in their death? Does it actually impact or change where they eventually spend eternity? Right? So we live here for there's a particular hymn, life at best is very brief, like the falling of the leaf, right? So when we understand that even if we possess the whole world and we are richer than the richest presently, we would leave everything. And that should send some form of shiver into us, that even if we claim ownership, the reason is it doesn't belong to us. It doesn't belong to us at the end of the day, right? So God owns everything. He gives resources to us, and as we develop ourselves, he entrusts more resources onto us. Remember the parable of the steward, the profitable servant, right? He was given 5, he did well with it and got extra 5, making it 10, and God gave him more, right? So the point is that everything belongs to God. And we need to understand that we are stewards. He gives this to us, and we came empty from one of our previous discussion. We came empty, and we would leave empty. However, between our entrance into planet Earth and our exit from planet Earth, resources have been committed to us. Resources of time, resources of wealth, resources of relationship, resources of family. We have all of those things entrusted to us. Resources of information, in the form of information, are given to us. What we do with them, we will give account for, right? But let's look at, we're narrowing down to financial stewardship for this series. After this, we'll go into stewardship of our time, right? Now, under financial stewardship, we see Paul stating something in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, and I want Bro Victor to start up with 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. It seems like Paul was not excited about help coming from outside. Now remember, we're talking about our local church now. What role are we playing in our local churches sometimes we tend to want to point fingers at other people for not doing something. Somebody is wealthier than I am, he should be doing it. Or we want to point fingers at external donors from abroad and something else to do something in our local church. Was Paul really excited about that? Let's see that in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 9. I'll read it. It says, surely you remember, brothers and sisters, our toil and hardship. We worked night and day in order not to be a burden to anyone while we preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. Yes, Brother Victor.
All right. So the key thing from Paul, in fact, this was not the only place Paul ended up in so much. It's another, I can't remember the reference. He was explaining that should now work with their own hands so that they give. You know, one of the reasons why we work as believers so that we are responsible stewards. We to contribute. So here Paul said, worked night and day in order not to be a burden, in order not to be a burden to anyone, gospel of God to you. So Paul excited in any way about being a burden, attitude that we believers should inculcate. Not to be burdens. Instead of looking for something coming from outside, we should look towards chance. You see, God has to this, but God has deposited so much in every place, and it's just for us to use those to us responsibly. You know, before we start going, have we done with what we have? We must start looking for external help before we start pointing. So when you come to your church, I think we can just bring assembly now in the church. Before you, as a church congregation, you begin to look outside. What have you people been able to do within? Then, as individuals, before you start pointing hands to, oh, people that have money, this one, yeah, okay, they mentioned the project, Mr. A or Mr. B will be the contribute. What have you yourself into this? Just like that widow, you know, she of the small she had, she was able to bring, and that was the way that God always wanted. Go and look at through the entire commandments that God gave the children of Israel. He did it in such a way that if you were so boxed up, bring a bull. He said, if you didn't have, you could bring a sheep. If you didn't have a sheep, in fact, he brought pigeons. In other words, no matter how it is, there is something you can to whatever work that is going on in the kingdom. It's good.
Thank you so much, bro. If you notice, maybe we should read verse 8 and 9 of 1 Thessalonians. Here we have it on the screen. We cared so deeply that we were delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our own lives as well. That is how beloved you became to us, right? Surely you recall, brothers, our labor and toil. We worked night and day so that we would not be a burden to anyone while we proclaim the gospel of God to you. Right? It seems we lost Joel there. Right? So here Paul was talking about working in the vineyard. He as an individual worked. In fact, if you notice, let's read Acts 18:3. We have it here under the cross reference. And this was referring to when he came across Priscilla and Aquila. He said he stayed and worked with them because they were tent makers by trade, just as he was. He worked with his hand. He contributed something. Paul wasn't one of those who would say, because I'm an itinerant preacher or a missionary, then I just spread my hands and receive and become a professional beggar. No, he wasn't going to do that. He was going to contribute something himself to the house, right? He was going to be a contributor to the house. He understood the fact that his time was given to him and he had to give good stewardship of his time, good stewardship of the resources that have been trusted to him, good stewardship of the skill that has been given unto him, good steward of the gifts that has been given unto him. Right? So in our local assembly, in our churches, what role are you and I playing to ensure that the church is firmly rooted and that the church is doing what it's supposed to do? Right? Are we pointing fingers at what other people should do, or are we actually playing a role? Especially when it comes to finance. Maybe we should go back to our slide. We'll notice from our slide, 2 Corinthians 8, 1 to 4. Let's see 2 Corinthians 8, 1 to 4. I'll read it again. It says, now, friends, I want to report on the surprising and generous ways in which God is working in the churches in Macedonia province. Fierce troubles came down on the people of those churches, pushing them to the very limit. The trial exposed their true colors. They were incredibly happy, though desperately poor. Wonderful. Incredibly happy, though desperately poor. The pressure triggered something totally unexpected, an outpouring of pure and generous gifts. I was there and I saw it myself. They gave offerings of whatever they could, far more than they could afford, pleading for the privilege of helping out in the relief of poor Christians. My brother, the scripture said they were desperately poor and they were giving out to the relief of poor Christians again.
Of poor Christians.
Desperately poor, giving out to the relief of poor Christians. By Paul's standard, these men in Macedonia, the Macedonian churches, were desperately poor, and they were willing in their poverty, as it were, to reach out to some other persons they might have considered to be more poor than they are. So that mindset of I must receive is part of the poverty mindset we addressed at the last webinar. Right? That as Christians, we must understand that there is blessing and greatness embedded in giving to the Lord and not being receivers only. In fact, the other passage you read, Paul was talking about how he so loved the people that they were willing to give their own lives as well. I see a resemblance between this and what Jesus Christ did, or what John 3:16 elaborates, that for God so loved the world that he gave. What sort of love do we have if we only point our fingers to others giving in our church, no matter how small you are? Bro Victor, I know you have something to add.
You see, just what we've been saying so far, it's usually easy to just assume that I don't have anything. But you know, that's entire attitude was really what that talent was really condemned for. He felt what just is not just one that I have. Jesus made an important statement. He said, it remains alone. As long as it remains alone. But if it is sown, it can germinate and reap. You know, when he was giving the mustard seed, talking about the way it says that it's like a small seed. It grows up to become a huge, but even others come to nest in them.
Yeah.
And some of these things, I believe, as we begin the issues, you know, lead to some of these things, would probably come across it. When we have a proper understanding, nothing I have is too small. I was never really interested in the of what you have, but in the fact that to contribute your own quota towards his things, to show your heart. You know, that place says it showed their true colors. part of our true colors is shown. I think we've talked about this before in previous webinars, in how we handle. When you see someone that even when he doesn't to give, then what Jesus said, you know, the kid that is faithful in little is faithful in more. You know, people are waiting for when they have resources before they can contribute. No, the big resources come into your hands. You must have shown yourself with even the little that you have. In fact, I had this issue one yesterday. Was like, okay, there was something we had the group and everything. I was like, you know, during this corona working, I said, see, we would have thrown this thing open, but it was, you know, we don't say that, you know, this person don't bring. Everybody has, no matter how small, there is something to contribute from here. No matter how, still someone you can help. There is a small quota you can still give.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you look at the scriptures properly, you will discover that the way God structured the church and the society at large, it wasn't structured in such a way that one person is the supreme being over the others. It wasn't structured in that manner. In fact, if you remember the Old Testament, when they were to leave Egypt and they had to kill the Passover lamb, God expressly told them that they had to eat up everything to the bones of the lamb. Now, there were some family that if they were to abide by that principle, they couldn't finish the lamb. And some other families were too large, that one lamb was going to be too small for them. And the instruction from God was that they should collaborate. This same thing was found again when in the wilderness, God had to provide manna for them. The Bible mentioned that they went out with, I believe, a measuring or maybe a calabash. So it's called Oma. And the instruction again was that that food, the manna, must not last overnight. There were some families that based on the type of Oma they had, they were going to have excess food. And some other families were going to have shortage. They that have excess were supposed to give to those that have shortages so that there will be no waste. Right? Now, even in the church, the way the church setting presently now has been framed, I won't be surprised if certain pastors get depressed while still pastoring churches. Because it has been structured in such a way that you are tempted to feel that one man, simply because he's a pastor, now knows everything, understands business, is a medical doctor, has the gift of prophecy, has the gift of discernment of spirit, and has all the spiritual gifts. And the truth is that is a lie. The way the church has been designed is that the pastor should sit down and allow the person who has the gift of teaching in his ministry, teach him how to become a pastor. And the teacher sits down and the pastor pastors him. That is the design of the church. We all have spiritual gifts, and the reason why we have the spiritual gifts is that we might profit with our. We profit everybody. Yes, everybody has something to do. You can't be the choir and be the usher and be the person taking the offering and also be the person preaching. You can't be that. Then how will other people within your organization grow? Yes, you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
All right. You know, so I'm just trying to explain how God has designed the universe itself, that animals need the carbon monoxide that comes from, animals need the oxygen that comes from plants, and plants require the carbon monoxide that comes from animals, right? The world has been fashioned like that. If you don't look deep inwards and decide that you have something deposited in you that you necessarily, out of necessity, have to give back to your local church. And in this case, we are actually speaking about financial involvement in your church. You would lack some blessings, and your church will miss your contribution, right? And there are certain growths that do not come until you give. A man who cannot give from his pocket, God has not taken hold of his heart. When God requires gifts from us, it isn't because he lacks them. It's because he's giving us a principle that where a man's treasure is, there his heart will be also. Requesting for your treasure is indirectly requesting for your heart. Right? Let's go to self-supporting churches. In Galatians chapter 6, verse 6, right? Even though this passage was talking more about giving I don't like using that word, that, that men of God. It's like giving to, our brethren who God has given some gifts, right? All of us are supposed to be men of God. This issue of this man is a man of God, then I'm just a brother. Right? If you are not a man of God, you're not on your way to heaven.
I'm just a brother.
You are not on your way to heaven. We all have to be men of God, right? So, nevertheless, Galatians 6:6. Nevertheless, the one who receives instruction in the word should share all good things with their instructor. Right? If we look at this passage under the study Bible here, starting from verse 5, for each one should carry his own load. Yes, each one should carry his own load. It's true. We shouldn't encourage mediocrity. However, just like the Bible said in verse 6, the one who receives instruction in the word must share in all good things with the instructor. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, he will reap in return. So, my brother, I want us to discuss this. I want us to look at a broader perspective of the terminology that was used there as the one who gives, or the instructor, with the understanding that we all, in quotes, are supposed to be instructors in one way or the other. When I'm ministering to my pastor by giving to him or by praying for him, I'm like an instructor. When he's ministering to me by digging deep to find a rema for me, he becomes my instructor. What do you have to say about this? I want us to look at it beyond just giving to the man of God. What do you have to say, my brother?
You see, this is one place where we fall short a little. Don't have proper understanding of some of the principles. God said something in Malachi when he asked us to bring the whole tithes and the whole offerings into it. Said that the essence is that there will be food in his house. That was really why he said, bring in all the. God is not going to take whatever thing you are bringing. He's not. So he said, bring it in that there be what? There might be food. In fact, if you actually go back, these things originated from when God was giving of Israel the laws of giving and all those things. You actually discover that for everyone at that particular point in time when you came to do your sacrifice, there was a part of that offering you were supposed to that person. Then there was a part of that offering, the entire storehouse, sort of, for future purposes, that if they're not a widow, a needy person in church, and they could always from that storehouse, give to him or her. So that is what he was talking about here. When we are in church or when we belong to any local assembly, except we are too proud to admit it, we are definitely being blessed. If not, you are receiving something, either like you mentioned, either instruction in terms of teaching,
Yeah.
or by somebody, or the evangelist that goes out to the word, whatever. But you are being blessed. You are being blessed by people. God has ordained it that each time you are blessed, you should in turn give something. That was Abraham was exhibiting when he gave to. He said Melchizedek blessed him. He gave to him. So whether it is not just the man of God now, on itself, the church blesses us. We do what? So something we should share. All good things. That's what it says. We should share in all good things. To broaden this even beyond even just God. Even though we are focusing today on beyond material things, we should be willing to share. This same place where it says everybody should carry their own. See where he said that we should bear one another's
burden.
So we should be willing the other person's burdens. Sometimes sharing in all these good things might mean when I mean it's not just money. You might see someone needs a clothes. You might not have cash to give, but you have a lot of dresses at home. You're not really, using them, but you know that someone has need of these things. You can have to drop something. You come into the church, when we should look for burdens we can carry.
Yeah.
We should look for needs that God can give out in the church. So that because that person, whether you like it or not, one way or the other, the person blesses you being a member of that congregation. When the person is seeing you and everything. So we must show that we are being open-handed. That's another instruction. Handed to your brother. So we must always ensure that we are. That is what ensures that the local prospers. If you go back to Acts, when they say that there was a needy person among them.
Yeah.
Jesus said something people among you. But he did not say that you only among you. There are two different set of people. They don't have. But we can convert the being needy if we obey the system that God has set up. That they are born of some cater for what's the of the others. If we can do this effectively, what will just happen? We will have a church that is so, because there will be no needy person in church. All right.
I agree with you, my brother. And even though this passage specifically was talking about the instructor, or New Living Translation calls it for their teachers. Let's see a cross-reference in 1 Corinthians 9:11. So if we have sown spiritual seed among you, is it too much for us to reap a material harvest from you? When you go to the social media, I love reading comments there. Some of them, forgive me, people who know practically nothing about the scriptures, haven't read the Bible, one chapter of the Bible, the whole of the life. You see them criticizing the church, right? Some have gone as far as saying that pastors or leaders of certain congregations who have requested that the churches should be opened if the markets are open, especially during this corona period, that they are saying this because the offerings and tithes have dwindled. Well, that might be true. However, I know some of these men who for many years were not known, and they were sowing their time. They were sowing from their resources, giving into the church. And now the church is known, and all of a sudden you think you're doing this because of the money? Right? Giving to your spiritual leader, as it were, is biblical. Paul even advocated for it. Right? 1 Corinthians 9:14. In the same way, the Lord has prescribed that those who preach the gospel should receive their living from the gospel. The Lord prescribed it. It was the Lord that prescribed it. Not the present church, not even the. It was the Lord that prescribed it.
The Lord that prescribed.
It was the Lord that prescribed it. So, giving to men of God. Sorry, I'm using that term, men of God again. Giving, but you understand what I mean. Giving to pastors or people who have spiritual oversight over us is biblical. However, the purpose of our discussion today isn't centered around just giving to our spiritual leaders. It is giving to the church. The church is beyond the pastor. The church is beyond the unit leaders. The church is every single person that associates with your fellowship. And beyond that, every other person outside your fellowship that believes in the Lord Jesus Christ is a member of the church, irrespective of the denomination. During this COVID lockdown, what have you done to keep in line with the instruction that you and I should be our brother's keeper? We read one passage just now where the poor supposedly were given to the poor. We read it in 2 Corinthians 8:1-4. I'll read it again. Now, friends, I want to report on the surprising and generous, all the adjectives there, ways in which God is working in the churches in Macedonia province. Fierce troubles came on the people of those churches. Are we not in the time of fierce trouble now? We are in the time of fierce troubles. It came down on the people of those churches, pushing them to the very limit. And I tell you, several people have been pushed to their very, very limit. The trial exposed their true colors. What is the trial of coronavirus exposing in you and I? Our selfishness or what? They were incredibly, the true colors there had a full column trying to explain what true colors meant there. They were incredibly happy, though desperately poor. The pressure triggered something totally unexpected. An outpouring of pure and generous gifts. Pure and generous gifts. I was there. It wasn't hearsay. Paul was there, and he saw it with his kuru eyes, like we will say. Yeah? They gave offerings of whatever they could, far more than they could afford. It still beats my imagination. How can you give more than you could afford? It doesn't mean that they took from somebody else. It's that they gave sacrificially. They gave sacrificially. It's like skipping a meal so you could have something to give. They were pleading for the privilege of helping out in the relief of poor Christians. What can you give? All of us have resources embedded in us. God has given us resources. We should look inwards and give. We should give our time. We have some people in the church, they are so good in counseling. They could counsel couples before they get married. We'll be couples. But you're not doing it. And the church is bleeding because you are not playing your role. Each and every one of us, and if you're a man of God or a pastor and listening to this discussion, you should look inward. You shouldn't be like Moses, who wants to do everything. You shouldn't feel intimidated because a brother's gift seems to be shining more than yours. By the way, you're still a pastor. You should be happy that somebody underneath you is doing well. You should give room for people to exercise their spiritual gifts under set guidelines. Let's move on with our slide as we wrap up our discussion today. Right? As we wrap up our discussion for today. Yeah, so that is man there having dominion over the earth. God has given us dominion over everything. Right? And these things are resources He's given unto us to use. Whatever resources you've been given, if they are not being channeled and tailored towards the development of Christians and the winning of new people into the church by way of evangelism and missions, then something is wrong with the way you are using the resources God has given you. We'll round up by discussing this question. Local resources. Every church has local resources. I believe that if God has planted you in a church, in a congregation, it's simply because he has something deposited in you that congregation needs. God will not send a prophet to a people that don't need prophecy. In fact, the Bible said concerning Samuel that whenever he walked into a city, the elders will come and ask what is happening. And when Samuel finished declaring, he returns back to Ramah, right? He goes back there. God will not send a gifting to a congregation that doesn't need it. If your congregation needs to build a tabernacle, you have within you there the resources to build that tabernacle. And if need be for the Egyptians to give you their gold, God will make that to happen. But it will still come to the hands of the Egyptians. Remember the story when they were leaving Egypt. God did it in such a way that the Egyptians gave gold and some other spoils to the Israelites. But the Israelites have to be willing to offer up that thing for the building of the tabernacle. They had to give it out, right? So why are our local resources not being developed? These are just 4 points. I know we will discuss more. Why? First one is poor understanding of stewardship by both the pastors and the people in the local church. We don't understand, we seem not to understand properly that our life and our time are assets given to us by God, and that we will give account of them. Not by the type of food we ate, not by the type of cars we drove, but by the effect we have on people's life. At the end of the day, if we are living our life solely because of us, it is too small a reason to live. You've got to look for something much more bigger than you to actually make sense out of life. If I'm living simply because of my children, my nuclear family, and my extended family, then my vision is just too small. God has given us enough, and we'll give account for each of them. Remember one of our discussions where we talked about the stewards. He gave them gifts, right? And they were to multiply it. Every gift God has given us is to profit with her. We are to multiply it, grow it, groom it, dress it, sow it, water it, let it germinate, and let birds feed and build their tent underneath what he has given unto us. Right? You want to ask something there? Or you want to pick up one of the points?
When we're also looking at let us quickly go through everything. But starting from understanding of stewardship, another thing we fail to understand the fact that there is need, develop these resources. That's actually one that we really need to get. So I've actually come across believers who say certain things don't belong to the pulpit. The people can just tell them to go to business schools and whatever. But we must encourage. If you look at Paul, was encouraging people right from his teaching. This was actually not even a pulpit stuff. He wrote letter to people. You have to see the pattern we set. We work with our hand to honor your boss. This is the way you should deal with your master, with so and so. And these are all things that is lacking in the church. We don't bring people into the understanding of how to operate as believers to relationship to the things they've been given. Because everything remains, I like remains in the form of a talent. But every talent works on needs to be plowed. Every land. And I think I was discussing with a few people. We are looking at kingdom treasures last. One of the things I actually got while I was preparing was in Proverbs. It says that the diligent, that anyone who will have plenty of food. You see, some of these resources are not them. It's not because they are not there, but because developed lands. By undeveloped lands now, of people, we have, just like we are saying, we have people who have so much abilities, but have honed to hone this ability, taking time to deploy them. For instance, you find people who can sing so much, and there is the choir there, and they're not. You see people who normally, actually, if you go stand-up comedians we have, are people that there are various churches. If you ask them now to act drama, they will not look at it as something. But these things were all gifts that are used in various ways.
Yeah.
Now, if you come to teaching, like you're mentioning counseling and those things, we need to have an how to equally develop. Then the exempting the poor from giving. This one is, we don't want to place burden on the poor and all those things. Understand what giving is. We will not see it as place. Yes, when it becomes a burden, is forcing people to give, like amount or whatever. But Paul said, whatsoever God has proposed to give, let him give. Understand that, see, the Bible says that he that sows, he that sows bountifully will reap bountifully. You know that telling the poor not to give, you are robbing them. And by robbing them, you are robbing the entire congregation as a whole. Because when you rob them of what they themselves can, you rob the congregation as well of what they could have given and what they could have brought by receiving what they would have received. People must teach people this stewardship. Then we must be very careful to be over-reliant on external. This is something that in most groups I'm part of. I'm always very, very on this area, very vocal on it, because here in Africa, we have this, what I call it a mindset of just always receiving and receiving and receiving, without ever looking at what can come out from us. What can we? How do we look at what we already have to fulfill? So we must, and that's one of the, so much of the development of resources we have. You will see people who, while behaving one kind, they go to certain places and it's the person, the people did not change. It was the same people that moved, but what changed was was created around them, allowed them to express whatsoever thing that was within them.
Yeah.
We must give expression, we must create an environment, expression to what people carry. And that is bringing that last point, effective mobilization. So we must effectively mobilizing what we have.
Yeah.
Start running out. Let's so that what is inside has been fully, even if it means churches sending out their people on training, sending out people to perhaps see how things are done, and with all this, while I was on campus, then the fellowships, I don't know, perhaps that's why fellowships on campus tend, well, I call it a bit more vibrant than is outside, because there was this level of creation in mobilization of resources, everything. But you could easily, okay, can I fellowship? Hey, this is where I am lacking. Just like you mentioned, when we realize that, see, yes, we might have assemblies, but all together we form the.
Body
So
of
when,
Christ. Mm.
yes, we form the body of. When issues arise, okay, I have, but I discovered that B has this. Rage what B has, such that abundance covers my adequacy. And
Mm.
then what can I give to him where he is weak?
Yeah.
So to effectively mobilize within. All right.
Thank you so much.
I don't know whether you have any other thing to add.
It seems to be raining here, and I guess it rained at your end.
Yes.
You were breaking
Yes.
at some point. We'll have to
Oh,
wrap it up here so it doesn't we'll continue next week.
okay.
As a conclusion, every single one of us should ensure that we look inwards and maximize the resources God has given unto us. And the only way you can make your resources grow is by throwing it upon the waters. Cast your bread upon the waters. If a grain of seed remains alone, it does nothing. For you to grow, that grain of seed must fall to the ground and die.
That.
You must be willing to lose if you want to get. You must be willing to give. If giving sounds like losing to you, then you need to change your mentality. Giving is sowing. Giving is sowing to the ground so that you can receive more. Not because we want to receive. We are not giving because we want to receive. If you remember the poverty mindset we discussed.
Want to double.
Yeah. God is not a money doubler, right?
Money.
We are giving because we know it is our responsibility to judiciously use the reward, the giftings that we've been given, right? As good stewards. We'll continue discussion next Sunday. You could put in your comments. If you have a topic you feel you want us to discuss on, why not? Let's have it at the comment. Please subscribe to this channel so you get and click on the notification button so you could easily get notification whenever we post a new video. Very soon, we'll be having live discussions where you could join us on YouTube live and drop your comments and discussions. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. God bless you.